How's it going, everyone? I've been seeing this question pop up lately, so I figured this is the perfect opportunity to make another video. I'll start with explaining her skills, then I'll answer some questions such as, what is Rosie's main purpose? Where is Rosie on the tier list? Should I summon for her? What content is she good for? And is it worth transcending her? Without wasting any more time, let's jump right into it. Rosie is a dark elemental mage whose main role is being a support. After I explain her skills, you'll see why. Probably the most common question I see is, how does her active skill work? When Rosie uses her active skill, Spirit Possession, she becomes a thirsty ghost and slides her DMs to the enemy, usually used for a boss. This possession lasts for 10 seconds, and during those 10 seconds, she cannot attack. However, the damage the enemy takes from your team is increased in proportion to Rosie's level and skill level. At Transcendence 0, her skill when maxed gives the team an extra 29% damage increase when in possession. At Transcendence 10, this is increased to 38%. Basically, this number increases by 0.9% each time you transcend her. If Rosie is the rightmost character and Cain is dead, then the enemies will stop attacking because they think nobody is there. After the 10 seconds is over, Rosie's attacks along with her attack speed is increased for 5 seconds. You can see this by observing her after her 10-second possession is over. Her damage is increased, and her attack speed is increased as shown by the yellow aura. Rosie's first passive skill is Ghost Blessing, which basically makes her tanky and buffs her teammates' active skills. When maxed, her health is increased by 80%. The second part of this skill basically means that anyone else on the team that uses their active skill right after Rosie's skill will have their active skill's damage increased by 20%, and it will crit and land without fail. This only applies to a single person after using Rosie's skill. Rosie's second passive skill is Dark Magic Research. This is pretty self-explanatory. When you're doing your daily raid against a fire element boss such as Asmodeus or the Fire Dragon, then the damage dealt to them by the entire team increases by 30%. This is nice, however, I don't see myself using her in raids, and I haven't seen many other top players use her in raids either. Rosie's third passive skill is a Strange Grudge. Ignore the confusing translation in this case. This skill basically boosts her damage against bosses, her crit damage, and her crit resist by 80% when maxed. This basically helps her become a little more resilient when it comes to her survivability. And lastly, Rosie's fourth passive skill is her Untouchable Body. When maxed, this increases her damage reduction by 10%, in addition to increasing her penetration and defense by 50%, thus making her a little more tanky. Because of this, a good spot to put her would be directly behind Cain. Listed below are her collection bonuses. By collecting more duplicates of Rosie, you'll obtain more crit rate, crit resist, and attack for all your characters. Now that you hopefully have a better understanding of her skills, let's answer some questions about whether or not you should get her. Question 1. What is Rosie's main role and purpose? Rosie is essentially a support/buffer for your team. Her passive skills are designed to improve her ultimate skill, whose purpose is to increase her teammates' damage. This is why she's often used in conjunction with high burst characters such as Megumin and Kana. Just think of her as another support to boost one's damage. Instead of being a passive buffer such as Dark Lord, she can be seen as more of an active buffer. Question 2. Where would I put her on the tier list? This is pretty subjective since she does not have the best performance in every game mode. If you desperately need some extra damage to kill a boss, or pass a wall you've been stuck on, then I can see Rosie being higher on your list towards S tier since she may be able to give you the slight boost to break past your wall. If your team is already pretty strong and you don't really need her, then I can see that audience rating her closer to the A tier. She's a versatile support that's useful at all stages of the game, so in terms of flexibility and utility, she's at a comfortable A tier for me. Question 3. Should I summon for her? I'll answer this question with another question. Do you already have most of the essential and top tiered characters? If so, then sure, summon for her. If you don't have all the essential characters, then I would say Rosie can wait. Fortunately, she is a permanent character, so you'll always have more opportunities later down the road to summon her. Who are the essential characters I'm talking about? Characters that I would recommend getting before Rosie are definitely Yui and Kana. After those, arguably I may think to get other support characters such as Dark Lord and Odin before Rosie, but those choices won't matter as much. Just make sure to get Yui and Kana before anything else. Now, if the question is whether or not you should get Rosie or spend your rubies on getting dupes of Yui, I would get one of Rosie and then spend the rest on Yui dupes. Question 4. What content is Rosie good for? Here's a summary of her performance created by the top player Fur, and I agree with it 100%. Going down the list, Rosie is not bad when it comes to raids, which Fur rates 3 stars. Even though she has one skill that helps against fire raids, there are other team compositions that would be better in the long run. Rosie is best in short battles with high bursting characters. Raids are the opposite and rate your team by judging their survivability. Her performance can be very strong in Climb and Adventure mode. If you were to use her skill in conjunction with strong bursting characters such as Kana and Megumin, then you can burst your way through many bosses in Adventure. The same cannot be said for farming Adventure. Because there are a plethora of different team compositions that are better designed for farming, her overall score for Adventure as a whole is 4 stars. Bosses in Dark Lord's Tower is a different story. Typically, bosses in Dark Lord's Tower have much more health and will often require for your team to be a strongly robust and resilient team where burst damage is not as significant a factor. Therefore, Rosie's rating for Dark Lord's Tower is 3 stars. Bosses in Abyss mode, however, are not as tanky and can more often than not be killed in one shot provided the right conditions. Similar to Adventure, you can use high damage characters such as Kana, Cain, and Dark Lord in conjunction with Rosie to deal some serious burst damage that will kill the boss in one fell swoop. This earns Rosie a 5-star in Abyss. Next is Guild Territory, which is where Rosie shines. Because Guild Territory battles are timed battles of 60 seconds, where you need to deal as much damage as possible, having a support like Rosie whose skills complement short burst damage battles is a perfect fit for Guild Territory. Her rating for Territory is 5 stars. Lastly, PvP and Slasher mode are areas where Rosie is needed the least. Since PvP battles don't use active skills, Rosie has very little advantage here. The top characters for PvP are still those with blocks such as Ares, Kana, Mary, and Joanne. For Slasher mode, characters with monster penetration, haste, or strong burst damage skills dominate. Characters like Lilith, Mary, and Belphegor are the best in terms of haste, whereas characters such as Kana, Cain, and Artemis provide strong active skills that one-shot the bosses with relatively low cooldown. Because Slasher mode is a long drawn-out battle with thousands of enemies, having someone like Rosie will do you little to no good. 1 star for both of these areas. And lastly, question 5, should I transcend her? This is a slightly difficult question for me to answer, as my Rosie is only transcendence level 1 at the time of this video's release. To my knowledge, the only big difference between a T0 Rosie and a T10 Rosie is their active skill. From T0 to T10, you get an increase in 9% damage for the active skill. Of course, rebirthing her 300 times and transcending her multiple times will increase her attack, which will benefit her active skill. However, this difference may not be that useful for a majority of players. If you still need to transcend other characters such as Cain, Yui, and Kana, I would make sure to transcend them first before even touching Rosie. If you're casually competitive, then you may want to get her to at least T3 or T4 to allow you to rebirth her effectively. Otherwise, just save yourself a few $100s or thousands of rubies and be content with a T0 Rosie. Of course, if you just like her design, then wail for her by all means. I hope this video was helpful for all those asking for it. If an answer to your question was unclear in this video, I recommend revisiting that question in this video to listen to it again. After that, if you're still confused, then leave a comment below and I'll be sure to answer it when I can. If I've answered your question and you stayed this long into the video, then I think that deserves a like. That'll let me know this video was helpful to you and will encourage me to make more in the future. Thanks again for watching, and as always, I'll see you in the next one.